This conference will now be recorded.
So, hello everybody, it's Mark introducing Mark again. I'm really excited to be talking about the work of the Area Safety Committee. And I have two world-renowned experts in this field. It's just a real shame I couldn't get them both to this event, but they've kindly going to do a recording for us that you're just about to listen to about AR safety, and particularly about the work in the safety committee. I'm focusing on one of our key deliverables there, which is the AR safety infographic, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. So what I'd like to do is introduce both of the gentlemen here. I'm pleased and honored to introduce Brian Laughlin and Greg Garrett from Boeing. Perhaps Brian, you can introduce yourself.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Dr. Brian Laughlin. I'm a tech fellow and an IT architect for the Boeing company, focusing primarily recently in the area of advanced visualization, so augmented, virtual, extended reality, informed reality, things like that. And then Greg?
Yes, hi, this is Greg Garrett. I work, as Marcus pointed out, at Boeing, and I do design for environmental health and safety for the Boeing company. I've also been very interested and working in the areas of augmented reality, as well as exoskeleton systems, and how they work in our protection systems.
Okay, thank you both, gentlemen. And also should say that Brian and Greg are actually the co-chairs of the Area Safety Committee as well, so bring a lot of input and insight into the committee. So I've got a few questions related to the safety area. So I'd like to start perhaps with you, Brian, and just talk about the importance of safety in the context of AR.
So as you can imagine, safety is of the utmost importance at Boeing. In fact, we have a company-wide program called Go for Zero that we drive continually to make sure that we have zero incidents or accidents in the safety regard. AR being an emerging technology, a lot of we're just kind of getting our feet under us and learning how to interact with this in appropriate ways out in an industrial environment. So given that in many cases you're wearing a headset, it can be a distraction. And we actually, the infographic that we'll review here in a little bit is broken out into 3 different areas that we've found there could be potential risks coming from. One is the environment out in the factory or wherever you're using this. The other is the device itself. So, what is the weight of it? How does it fit? Does it occlude your vision? And then the third would be the actual user themselves. So what are the sensory issues and the cognitive aspects of consuming information using an AR device? One of the things that we are trying to address with this and make sure that we are clarifying is a lot of times there's misappropriation of, for example, old virtual reality technology issues. For example, with AR, because you have a constant frame, we don't tend to have the dizziness issues that are often attributed to VR applications. And so a lot of times, folks, there's a lot of misunderstanding about safety issues with AR, and we're hoping to clear it up with this infographic.
That's great, Brian. Thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to go into a bit more detail about the infographic and talk about the Area Safety Committee. So, Greg, perhaps you can talk a little bit about the process that the committee used to create the infographic, and why is it important to have like this? Over to you.
Sure, thank you, Mark. So one of the things that we had to do as a committee is we came together and we had to look at this large pool of information that was kind of scattered all over the place and try to sort through it and separate it into the different buckets that you see on the infographic. We worked together as a team to try to help refine that body of knowledge into some bite-sized, more consumable chunks, while at the same time trying to cover most of the areas of concerns or hazards that we were seeing that were in the literature. But we also wanted to illustrate and highlight that there are benefits in the use of AR. So the importance of this was we were really looking at trying to figure out how we can deliver these safety and ergonomic risks somewhat quickly, very succinctly. That would also provide a framework for a lot of our safety professionals to be able to evaluate the AR systems and their introduction into their workplace environment. Additionally, we were looking at how could we use this as a guide or provide it as a guide for our software developers when they're designing that user interface, to consider that there's clutter and there's other ways that could further interfere with the worker out in the environment. But we also wanted to inform that user too as well as to what potential hazards they could be exposed to, and so that they could be aware of while they're wearing the AR system. And additionally, what benefit gains they might realize, such as increased productivity while they were using the system.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I think that's really useful. And as I say, it's a succinct and a graphical way of showing some of the risks, but also the benefits, which is the objective of the piece of work to start with. But perhaps I can ask Brian to talk about what's the next steps with this infographic in this work. Perhaps you can bring some light to that.
So initially, the goal with this was to try to get some kind of semblance of order around the myriad of different potential features or factors that involved, AR and safety. And I feel like we accomplished that pretty well with the infographic, so that at a glance you can kind of get an overview of the different respective issues. Within AREA, we've also have some tremendous work being done on behalf of some of our other colleagues in the safety committee and whatnot, that goes into deep, kind of digging into understanding more about what are the safety elements and risks of a project that you're trying to do, for example. And so in the future, we want to actually make this infographic interactive so that it becomes an interface or a series of clickable features that will drive you into a deeper understanding for the different respective kind of high level areas. So not only can you get more information about what that area contains or what we're talking about in that space, but also perhaps some vignettes, maybe brief videos or audio recordings of actual practitioners and talking about issues that they've experienced in that particular space and ways that they've resolved them, along with some questions that these folks can ask to kind of self-help, walk themselves through the jungle that is understanding the safety issues around augmented reality and application of it in industry.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. That's really great. So just a kind of final question. I've been really excited about the input of the Area Safety Committee. We've had lots of the members turn up having really open conversations around some of their issues with safety. And it's been really interesting to listen how many of those problems are similar across different industries and across different organizations. So perhaps, as said, Brian, you could give us your last few comments about how the area is helping to explain and overcome potential safety issues in AR deployment and use. Perhaps give that next kind of step in wider view.
So often, when you're working in industry, it's a competitive environment, and so industries or companies tend to not be very kind of public about the type of work that they do. One of the big benefits that I've found with AREA is it kind of provides a safe place in the form of an industry consortium and an agreement across these different companies to kind of come into a back office space, if you will, to be able to do benchmarking against each other's experiences and sharing of best practices and what we found to be effective or not, and mistakes made and things like that. The other thing is sometimes the implementation of augmented reality seems like it's device centric, but a lot of it deals with the process in which you're going to use that. So, and it's a tough process. Anytime you're implementing change, it can be pretty difficult. And so misery loves company, and it's nice to be able to have other colleagues that you can compare notes with and say, hey, yes, I've had that same problem, and here's what we did, or tell me more about that, and to help you kind of brainstorm and think with some fresh eyes, about the problem that you're dealing with in particular. So I really enjoy the community that we have built with AREA, and I think we've only just begun to kind of get our legs underneath us and starting to get kind of battle rhythm going forward, if you will. And I think the contributions are starting to increase, and I look forward to a positive future with this group.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, and thank you for your leadership. And perhaps I can pass over to Greg about some of the kind of future deliverables and what you see from the benefits of the Area Safety Committee.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. A lot of the information specifically that came out of the infographic that we used to develop that has allowed us to start developing assessment tools for our safety professionals, as well as our software developers, safety managers, even users. So they can use some of these tools to, again, determine what the impact is from a health and safety aspect when implementing augmented reality into their production system. So in addition, as a team, the safety committee is in the process of developing further a playbook sort of outlining the process that somebody can follow, either company, individual, consultants, and what decisions you need to make and how you should go about implementing augmented reality into their manufacturing or workplace environment. So I think having that playbook will help alleviate and answer some of the questions that companies who are unfamiliar possibly with AR and some of the benefits and risks can definitely follow when they're going to implement those AR solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And I'm really excited about the playbook as well, because it's taking the kind of shared knowledge of lots of companies into one document that everyone can use. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. So finally, guys, I want to thank you both very much for your insight and input and for your leadership of the Area Safety Committee. It's a real shame you can't be with us in Sheffield, but I know you're kind of available, and again, thank you for all your help, and look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that safety, whilst there always will be some issues with safety, we can overcome them as an industry and as an ecosystem quickly and effectively. So thanks so much, guys, and see you soon.
Thanks very much.